After 9 months at sea, my wife told me not to come home. 24. Hours later, her attorney was pleading desperately. What do you do when the home you dreamed of for 9 months at sea turns into a stranger's stage? Daniel's heart pounded as he stood across from his house, the Atlantic's salt still clinging to his skin, only to find a just-married convertible mocking him in the driveway. Was this a mistake? Or had Emily, his wife, rewritten their life while he battled storms for their family? The gifts for Noah and Ava, a telescope and starfish pendant, felt heavy in his bag as he read her chilling text. Don't bother coming. The locks are changed. Who was living in his home? Why had Emily erased him from their children's lives? The warm glow of the windows hid laughter that wasn't his, and Daniel's blood boiled with a mix of betrayal and resolve. This wasn't just a return. It was the start of a war he'd been preparing for in the dark, lonely nights at sea. With one call to his lawyer, he unleashed a storm of his own. Dive into a gripping saga of deception, calculated revenge, and a sailor's unbreakable will, where every move is a battle for truth, and the tide always turns. The scent of home was supposed to be comfort. After 9 months at sea, hauling freight across the Atlantic on a rust-covered cargo ship, I imagined one thing on the return flight. My wife, Emily, running into my arms at the airport. My kids yelling, "Daddy!" as I dropped my duffel bag and knelt to catch them. I had their gifts packed tightly. A hand-carved telescope for Noah. A starfish pendant for Ava. I replayed the moment in my head so many times I almost believed it had already happened. Instead, I stood across the street from my own home, staring at a nightmare in broad daylight. There was a car parked in my driveway, a silver convertible still covered in streamers and cheap plastic balloons. The license plate frame read, "Just married." The kind of tacky detail I'd laugh at if it wasn't. Outside my damn house. My house. I blinked, hoping maybe I was just jet-lagged. Maybe I had the wrong address. Maybe I was losing it. But then I saw Emily's favourite throw pillow tossed on the porch bench. The wind flapped the corner of her striped robe through the open upstairs window. No mistake. I was home. I just wasn't wanted here. Then my phone buzzed. "Emily, don't bother coming. The locks are changed. The kids don't want you. It's over." That was it. No punctuation, no name. Just 3 sentences that felt like gunshots. She didn't say, "Let's talk." She didn't say, "Welcome back." She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "The locks were changed, that my children didn't want me." I didn't reply with rage. I didn't call. I didn't beg. I just typed, "As you wish." Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to Mark Evans, my lawyer. I tapped call. "Mark, it's time." I said, "Initiate everything. No warnings. Full burn." I didn't even wait for a response. I hung up. That was at 3:41 p.m. By 5 p.m., her accounts were frozen. By 7 p.m., I had legal custody requests filed and half the neighborhood was whispering. By midnight, I had 22 missed calls. The last voicemail from her lawyer, panicked and frantic. "You have no legal right to do that with her." It cut off. I smiled for the first time in months. Let me tell you something about working 9 months on a cargo ship with 34 other men. You learn patience, you learn endurance, and you learn how to suffer in silence. I'd been reading between Emily's lines for years. The way her voice turned razor sharp when I called late. The way she always forgot the time zone differences. The way she never posted me in any of her photos. I didn't want to believe it back then. But now I had proof. Not words, not suspicion. Proof. I walked back to the rental car and looked one last time at the house. The windows were glowing with warm light. Shadows passed behind the curtains. Laughter filtered out through a slightly open window. Not my laughter. Not my family. She didn't just replace me. She erased me. I pulled out my phone again. There was a new message. Another one from Emily. "Emily, you've always been dramatic. Grow up and move on. I'm finally happy. You should be, too." There it was, the mask off. Emily used to pretend. Pretend to cry when I left. Pretend to miss me. pretend to be loyal, but she was never any of those things. She was always about control, about appearances, a professional manipulator in yoga pants. She wasn't just a bad wife. She was a professional grade. And she just played the wrong game with the wrong man. You see, while she was at home posting filtered selfies with fake captions, I was at sea building escape plans in my head. Every lonely night I spent staring at the waves. I imagined what I'd do if I ever caught her slipping. Well, I didn't catch her slipping. I caught her throwing me into the gutter and rolling out a red carpet for someone else. I just happened to come home during the parade. And now I would burn everything she thought was hers. Not with violence, but with cold, unshakable calculation, because I wasn't the same man who left on that ship. I was worse, and Emily had no idea the kind of storm she'd just unleashed. By the time dawn lit up the edges of the clouds, I had a hotel key in one pocket and a bottle of whiskey in the other. I didn't drink it. Not yet. I needed a clear head. Every second from now on was a move on the board. And Emily, she had no idea the game even started. At 7:42 a.m., I walked into my bank branch, the same one where Emily used to smirk while making withdrawals and yoga pants, pretending she was some helpless housewife. I signed the documents that transferred our joint account to individual status. Emily's card cancelled, her access gone. Then came the property. The deed had always been in my name. Emily knew that. She just never thought I'd use it. But when the divorce pre-filings hit her inbox that morning, so did the official notification that she had 48 hours to vacate. And since she already changed the locks, I made it easier. I contacted a locksmith myself, replaced every lock she just installed with biometric security, keyed to my fingerprints only. Revenge doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes it looks like silence and a courier envelope. At 10:13 a.m., Emily finally called. I stared at the screen, watched her name pulse on the glass. I didn't pick up, let it ring. She called again, then finally, she left a voicemail. "You are seriously overreacting, Daniel." She said her voice had that practiced calm, the one she used when manipulating the kids. "We should talk. I mean, this is all dramatic. I thought we were adults." I played that voicemail 6 times. Not once did she apologize. Not once did she say she missed me, or loved me, or regretted anything. Just, "We should talk." Translation: fix what I broke, so I don't have to face consequences. Around noon, I got a message from my daughter's school. The principal wanted to confirm whether I'd approved Emily's decision to list her new boyfriend as an emergency contact. My jaw locked so hard I thought I'd chip a molar. I drove there personally, showed them the paperwork, proving full temporary custody, and removed Emily's name entirely. I left copies of those papers in her lawyer's inbox with a note. "Feel free to call again. I'm free every never." The truth, I didn't recognize her anymore. This was the same woman who used to cry when I boarded a ship, who sent me long emails about how empty the bed felt without me, who begged me to just do one more trip so we could finally afford the beach house. All lies, all of it. Now she was playing wife to some stranger in my home, driving the car I paid for, trying to erase me from my kids' lives. And the worst part, she really thought she'd get away with it. You don't marry a sailor and expect him to drown quietly. That night, I parked across the street again. Same view, different heart. The party balloons were gone now. The driveway was empty. Lights were out. Emily had called 13 times, left 8 voicemails. The last one sounded shaken. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. I mean, we were separated, Daniel. Emotionally, you've been gone for months. What was I supposed to do? Just wait forever." There it was. The justification, the script. Except, I never signed up for a marriage with expiration dates. I didn't marry her with a contract that said void if husband leaves for work. I busted my body at sea to give her everything, and she sold it off the moment the door closed behind me. I had 2 options. Option 1, scream, fight, demand explanations. Option 2, shut every door and never look back. I chose the second, but just before I left the car, I saw her silhouette in the window. Emily, arms crossed, talking on the phone, pacing like a cornered fox. I wondered if she was calling him. Her new man. The same one who probably wore my robe, sat in my chair, and slept on my sheets. The same one who probably tucked my daughter in with fake warmth while I hauled diesel drums in Atlantic storms. Then I smiled again, let her enjoy her new life. It was built on sand, and I just yanked out the foundation. She took my absence as weakness. She forgot that sailors don't sink. We survive, and when we come home, we bring the tide with us. 2 days passed before she showed up. At my hotel, I was eating breakfast alone, scrolling through an email from Mark about the asset freeze, when I noticed the hostess glance toward the entrance. Her face tensed. I didn't need to turn around. I felt Emily's presence before I saw her. That fake perfume, the heavy heels she only wore when she wanted to manipulate someone. She walked straight up to my table like nothing had happened. "Daniel," she said. Her voice carried that strained, high-pitched softness she used when she wanted something. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up from my coffee. "You already said everything in your text, and in case you forgot, don't bother coming. Doesn't leave much room for conversation." She pulled out the chair across from me and sat uninvited. "You're being cruel," she said, crossing her arms. "I was in a dark place." "Okay, you left. You were gone for almost a year and I felt abandoned. I made a mistake, but I didn't think you'd burn down our whole life over it. Mistake." I finally looked at her. Mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You had a wedding in my driveway. "Emily!" She flinched like I slapped her. "I didn't marry him," she whispered. I raised a brow. Then, whose name was on the just married sign? She hesitated. Then she scoffed. It was symbolic. I was trying to move on. Symbolic? That's cute. Were the balloons symbolic too? She blinked, her facade cracking. "Why are you doing this? You changed the locks. You told the kids I was gone. For good. You tried to erase me like I was some one nightstand you regretted. You humiliated me in my own home. Now you're asking why I'm doing this." She leaned in angry now. "You always think you're the victim. Maybe if you were actually present instead of sailing off to God knows where for months, I wouldn't have had to find happiness elsewhere." There it was. Her truth, not remorse, not regret, just blame. As if loyalty had a timestamp. As if commitment expired once things got difficult. I stood up. She followed. "Daniel, wait. Don't," I said, pulling out my wallet. I dropped a 50 on the table, enough to cover my coffee and whatever ego she shattered when she walked in. "You lost the right to chase me the moment you brought a man into my house and told our children I was replaceable." Her voice rose. "You can't just walk away from this." "I'm not walking," I said. "I'm erasing." I left her there in that overpriced hotel cafe, surrounded by strangers, pretending not to stare. Later that afternoon, Mark called again. Emily's new man. His name was Lucas, apparently had been served with a cease and desist. He'd been driving my vehicle around town, claiming to be a legal guardian for Noah and Ava. He wasn't even listed on a school form. Now he had a temporary restraining order and a court summons. "And Emily," she messaged again that night. "Emily, I'm calling the kids. You can't keep them from me. They're not pawns." I didn't reply. I never needed to because the truth was, Noah and Ava had already seen through her. When I picked them up from school that afternoon, Ava ran straight into my arms. "You came back," she said, burying her face in my neck. "I never left," I whispered. Noah didn't say much, but when we got in the car, he asked if he could stay with me for a while. His voice was careful, like he was testing the waters. I said yes. No conditions. That night, we ate takeout on the floor of the small rental house I'd moved into. Just the three of us. No drama, no yelling, no lies. Emily tried calling again. This time, I blocked her. Not out of pettiness, out of peace. Because for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. A week later, Emily filed an emergency motion in court, claiming I'd kidnapped the kids. It backfired. Mark walked into that courtroom with a stack of printed text messages, school records, and a sworn affidavit from the kids' counselor. Emily didn't expect me to be 10 steps ahead. She still thought I was that same naive man who believed every tear. She cried over FaceTime. The judge didn't buy her performance. She sat there in her designer blazer, trying to look like the victim, while the truth peeled off her skin like wet paint. When the judge asked Noah if he wanted to speak, he nodded. Brave kid. I just want to stay with my dad for now, he said. It's calmer, feels more real. Emily didn't even look at him. She just stared straight ahead, lips tight. I recognized that face. It was the same one she wore when she used to lie and pretend nothing was wrong. The court granted me temporary primary custody. Emily was given visitation but supervised. She stormed out before the papers were signed. That night, she posted a picture of herself on Instagram with some quote about rising from the ashes. Her caption was something like, "You can't break a woman who was born in fire." I laughed. She wasn't born in fire. She was forged in deceit. The next day, Lucas showed up at the school. He tried to act like it was some innocent mistake, claiming Emily had told him to drop off a lunchbox, but the security guard saw his name on the restraining order and called it in. He was escorted off the property within minutes. Emily messaged me 2 hours later. "Emily, that was a misunderstanding. You didn't have to humiliate him. You're being vindictive." I didn't respond, not because I didn't have words, but because I had better things to do, like take my kids to the lake, like teach Noah how to skip stones, like help Ava build a seashell bracelet she said she'd wear forever. I watched them laugh as the waves chased their ankles, and for a moment, I forgot what betrayal felt like, but Emily didn't stop. She showed up at my rental a few days later. She didn't knock. She pounded loud, repeated. I opened the door just enough to make a point. She wore sunglasses, but I could see the fury behind them. "You're ruining everything," she hissed. "Do you even hear yourself? You're tearing this family apart." I tilted my head. "You mean the family you kicked me out of over text?" She didn't answer. "You're the one who locked me out," I said. "You told me I wasn't wanted. You brought someone else into my house while I was out there breaking my back to keep this family afloat." "I was alone," she snapped. "You think it's easy being left for almost a year? I needed someone. You needed someone while I was keeping the lights on. You needed someone while I missed birthdays and first steps and late-night calls with crying kids." Her voice cracked. "You don't understand." "No, Emily, you don't understand. You made choices. You don't get to cry about the consequences now." She looked past me like maybe she'd see the kids inside and guilt me into giving her another piece of what she destroyed. I shut the door before she could. Later that night, Noah asked me if I still loved her. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I loved who she used to be, but people change, buddy, and sometimes they don't come back from it." He nodded like he understood more than a kid his age should. I tucked him in. Then I stared at the ceiling for a long time, because he wasn't wrong to ask, and I wasn't wrong to leave the answer unfinished. The next morning, there was a package at my doorstep. No note, no name, just a white box tied with a silver ribbon. Inside was Emily's wedding ring. I held it in my hand for a few seconds, felt the weight of it. The cold metal that once symbolized forever now felt like nothing. Just a pretty lie. I didn't throw it away. I didn't return it. I just dropped it into the drawer with old receipts and broken charges. That's what it was now. Useless and buried under things that no longer worked. Emily didn't stop trying. A few days later, she left a voicemail. This one different. "I miss our family. I miss waking up next to someone who cared about me. I know I messed up, Daniel. I know I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, but please don't erase me completely." There it was. Cracks in the mask. Her voice trembled. But still, not once did she say, "I'm sorry." Not once did she own it. Just more emotional theatre without a script. The worst part, a piece of me still wanted to believe her. But then I got a message from Ava's school counsellor. Apparently, Emily had tried to pick her up early the day before, unannounced, unapproved. The school denied her as they should have. But Ava had seen her mother's face through the glass and she'd cried for the rest of the day. I sat with Ava that evening. She curled into my side and asked, "Why is Mommy acting like she didn't do anything wrong?" I didn't know how to answer a question like that, so I told her the only truth I could. Some people lie to themselves so well. They forget it's a lie. She didn't say anything, just held on to me a little tighter. Emily started emailing me then. Long messages, every paragraph trying a different strategy. Guilt, blame, flattery, rage. She even said Lucas was out of the picture and that she realized what a mistake it had all been. But the moment that sealed everything, she sent me a photo. It was of the four of us, me, her, Noah and Ava at the beach house, smiling, happy, whole. And under the picture she wrote, "We could be this again." I stared at that photo for a long time and I realized something. We were never that. The smiles were real. Sure, the kids were real, but Emily, she was always in costume, always waiting for the moment to turn the spotlight back to herself. That photo wasn't a memory, it was a performance. So, I wrote one sentence back. "I'm raising them without lies now." She didn't reply. A week later, Mark called. Emily's lawyer wanted to settle. No more court battles, no more emergency motions, just signatures and silence. I said yes without hesitation. The final papers arrived a few days later. I signed them that evening alone in the kitchen after the kids had gone to bed. The pen didn't shake, my heart didn't pound. There were no tears. There was only peace. Emily had burned the bridge between us and then acted surprised when she couldn't. Crossback. She underestimated something simple. I didn't need revenge. I needed release. And I got it with every signature, with every locked door, with every bedtime story I read to my kids. While she was left staring at the empty half of a bed she made cold by herself, she chose fire. But I walked through it, and I didn't just survive. I came out cleaner, stronger, done. Weeks passed, and the noise faded. No more lawyers, no more drama, just normal days, school drop-offs, packed lunches, and bedtime giggles. I started sleeping again. Real sleep. The kind where your jaw isn't clenched and your phone isn't clutched in your hand, just in case someone tries to take something from you. Noah started smiling more. He asked to join a baseball team. Ava began drawing again. She made a picture of our house. Just me and the two of them holding hands under a big sun. Emily wasn't in it. She didn't even ask why when I put it on the fridge. The silence from her end grew louder. No calls, no texts, just the occasional shared calendar notification about visitation time she rarely used. When she did show up, it was brief, awkward, and overly rehearsed. She tried too hard with the kids, gave them expensive gifts, promised Disney trips. They smiled politely, but they never asked to stay longer. I think they finally saw it. Not just what she did, but who she really was. I heard through someone at the school that Lucas left quietly. No fireworks, just gone. Apparently, he realized being with Emily wasn't as glamorous once the curtain dropped. She tried to cling to him the same way she tried to cling to me when her audience thinned out. She once told me, "People don't change, they just reveal." She was right. But I don't think she expected to be the proof of her own theory. One evening, Noah came into the living room and sat beside me on the couch. No words, just sat there close. I waited. Then he said, "You're better now." I turned toward him. "What do you mean?" "You don't look tired all the time. You used to look sad even before you left on the ship." I didn't know what to say to that. Kids see everything. They see the cracks in a smile, the lies in a laugh. He knew more than I realized. Maybe he always did. That weekend we went hiking, just the three of us. There was this moment at the top of the ridge, sun starting to set, wind in our faces, and not a single sound except the trees. Ava held my hand, and Noah took a picture of us. "I'm going to frame it," he said, and something inside me shifted. I didn't need to fix the past. I didn't need apologies or explanations. I had my answer right there. This peace, this new life, these two kids was everything I fought for, everything I refused to let her poison. Emily was just the storm I had to sail through to get here. And now that I was here, I wasn't looking back. A month later, I got a letter, not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter. Emily's handwriting, sharp, rushed, like she was squeezing every word out of guilt and desperation. She wrote that she'd started therapy, that she was unpacking old wounds, and realizing how much she projected her misery onto the people who cared about her. She mentioned her childhood, her insecurities, her loneliness. She tried to explain that what she did wasn't about love or hate. It was about control. She admitted to cheating, though she didn't call it that. She called it a reaction, like she was a bystander in her own betrayal. She ended with, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope one day you'll understand why it all happened the way it did." I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer, and never responded, because I didn't care why anymore. Understanding her wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't make her a better mother. It wouldn't undo what she did to our family. And it sure as hell wouldn't give me back the nights I sat on a cargo ship, wondering if my wife still thought of me when she was already building a new world without me. But something changed that day. Not with her, with me. I stopped thinking about the past as something I needed to heal from. I stopped asking why she did it, or what I could have done differently. I let go of the idea that closure had to come from her. Closure came when Ava laughed so hard at dinner, she spit juice all over the table. Closure came when Noah asked me to teach him how to cook his favorite breakfast. Closure came when I realized I didn't flinch when I heard Emily's name. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't forgetting. It was just the end of giving her any more real estate in my head. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I stood in the kitchen and looked at their drawings stuck to the fridge. I saw the photos we'd taken on hikes at the lake in the backyard, and I realized this was a new chapter, not a continuation, a restart, one without lies, without begging for someone to care, without pretending. I wasn't the man she left. I was the man I found. She tried to rewrite our story with someone else, but I wrote the ending, and the ending wasn't revenge or rage. It was peace. A few months later, I stood in the same courtroom where it all started. Only this time it was final. The divorce was done. Custody was settled. No more hearings. No more lawyers. Emily sat 2 rows behind me, silent. No mascara tears, no tantrums, no fake apologies. Just a quiet, defeated presence. For once, she didn't speak. When the judge signed the final decree and nodded at me, it felt less like a finish line and more like the closing of a prison gate behind me. I stepped out of the courthouse and into the sunlight, breathing like I hadn't in years. No weight on my chest, no tightness in my jaw, just air, fresh, clean, and mine. The kids and I moved a week later. New house, new town. Nothing fancy, just ours. Noah decorated his room with maps and photos of cargo ships. He told me he might want to sail one day. I smiled and said, "Only if you promise to come home." Ava painted her room yellow, bright, stubborn, full of light, just like her. She asked me to hang her favorite picture above the bed, the one of us 3 at the lake. It became our symbol, proof that we rebuilt something better from the wreckage. Sometimes Emily called. I answered, but I never let her back in. She saw the kids when the court allowed. She tried harder now, less manipulation, more effort, but it was too late to matter. The kids were old enough to see her clearly. They loved her, but they didn't trust her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And me? I started writing again, journaling, something I hadn't done since before the ocean swallowed so much of my time. I wrote, not for closure, but for clarity, to remind myself how far I'd come. I met people, talked, laughed. Slowly, I remembered what it felt like to be a man outside of pain, and eventually, I stopped waiting for the past to knock on the door. It never did. One evening, as I tucked Ava into bed, she looked up at me and said, "You're not sad anymore." I paused. Then I smiled. "No, I'm not." She nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes. And in that quiet moment, with the sound of my daughter's breathing and the house wrapped in peace, I realized Emily broke something, but she didn't break me. She freed me. And in losing everything I thought I needed, I found everything I never knew I could build again. Stronger, real mine. Betrayal is a thief that steals not just love, but the very ground beneath your feet, yet it can forge a path to unshakable strength. Daniel's odyssey through Emily's cold dismissal, locking him out of his own home after 9 months at sea, reveals a truth as vast as the Atlantic. The deepest wounds can birth the fiercest resolve. Emily's attempt to erase him, parading a new life in their shared space, wasn't just infidelity, it was a declaration of war on his existence. Yet, Daniel's calculated response, freezing accounts, securing custody, reclaiming his children's trust, shows that true power lies not in rage, but in reclaiming your narrative. His journey teaches us that betrayal doesn't define you, your response does. To those standing in the wreckage of broken vows, know this: your pain is a signal, not a sentence. Trust the instincts that whisper when something's wrong. Walk away, not to destroy, but to rebuild. Forgiveness isn't about absolving the betrayer, it's about releasing their hold on your soul. Daniel's new home with Noah and Ava, filled with laughter and seashell bracelets, proves that life, after deception, can be richer, grounded in authenticity. Let go of the need for their remorse. Your peace is the ultimate victory. Stand firm, rewrite your story, and let the tide carry you to a shore where trust is earned and love is real.